Hello and welcome to the second Urbanisation lunch session. Our guest today is Bernhard Müller, former mayor of Wiener Neustadt, a town about 50 kilometers south of Vienna, and now the Secretary General of the Urban Forum Institute, an institute dealing with urban topics and the future of the city. We are now talking about urban developments, statistics, and other topics around cities in Europe and the whole world.
Thank you, distinguished guests. Dear host Bernhard, it's a pleasure to be at the lunch session today. In the front, you can see the presentation. Urban Forum, a strong voice for cities for more than 10 years. About Urban Forum a little bit later. Now we can start the presentation. Thank you. Our topic today is urbanization in Austria and globally. I would give some figures, data, facts, and trends. So these are the 5 historical phases of urban development. These historical phases mentioned, noticed by researchers, by historians. So it's no discussion about these 5 phases. So it's not necessary to read it for you. You can do it by yourself. The first point is and was in Palestine. The second, the very famous city-state polis. Then the medieval city. And then industrialization and urbanization in the 19th and early 20th centuries, maybe also at the end of the 18th century. But urbanization and industrialization is not ident, it's not the same, but without industrialization, there would be no urbanization. Yeah. And then the next point, global cities. It's very interesting that there is not existing a uniform definition of urbanity. And in Austria, we have a very famous cultural socialist and urban researcher. He's called Manfred Russo. And he is regarding there is not a consensus on what urbanity means. Yeah. So Bernd is doing some technical support. So it's done. So there is no consensus on what urbanity means, and it quickly becomes clear that we are dealing here with a phenomenon that is subject to a wide variety of interpretations. Yeah? But in this presentation, we are talking about urbanization, so the growing of population in the cities and in the urban areas. The same problem is with definition of a city. There is no definition globally accepted, but the United Nations, the UN, has valid data for urban agglomeration. So this is very important for the discussion of this topic. And in Austria, we have so-called Gemeinde, Stadtgemeinde, and Marktgemeinde, historical designations. They are existing for a long time, but have had no legal significance since the municipal reform of 1849. So these are additional names. Yeah? We have communes. They are huge for Austria, with about 25,000 inhabitants. So this is huge for Austria. And they are not formally cities. They are called Marktgemeinde and so on. So these are additional names, but not really important for the reality of the size and other topics. Urbanization, and this is fixed. There is no discussion. Urbanization is a so-called megatrend, And please, dear guests, take a look to this file, to this sheet. In 1950, so 75 or 76 years ago, only 29 out of 100 people lived in cities. The rest lived in rural areas. So you can take a look to the year, and these dates and facts are valid. In 1950, 746 million inhabitants. In 1980, 1.74 billion population in urban areas. In 2021, 4.4 billion. And the forecast of the United Nations for 2050, so less than 25 years, 6.3 billion people living in urban areas. So I think you can see that is a really mega trend. Let's take an overview of global urbanization levels or over time. The official definition is annual percentage of population at mid-year residing in urban areas. The definition is also from United Nations. In percent, now we can compare 1950, 29.6, so about 30% in urban areas. 1970, 36%, a little bit more. In 1990, 42 or 43%. And 2010, after the break-even, more than 50% of the people globally living in cities or urban agglomerations. So it's not so long ago, dear guests. It's about 15 or 16 years ago, there was the break-even, switching from majority in rural areas to urban areas. Then 2020, 56, so growing up fastly. And the forecast of UN for 2030, less than 5 years, 60%. And the forecast to 2050, less than 25 years in the future, 68%. So it's growing up to about 70% globally for people living in urban areas. The urbanization statistics for the continents, I think this is very interesting because there are existing a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes. The degree of urbanization in 2020, there are no newer numbers for comparing all the continents. So it's important to take a look in the past, 2020, but not long ago. The continent with the highest degree of urbanization, North America, a lot of people think it's Europe, but Europe is number 3, not number 1 and number 2. The highest degree of urbanization is in North America with more than 80%, and then Latin America and Caribbean, so nearly the same like North America. Then the step is a little bit huger from Europe to Latin America or North America, Oceania, and then Asia. A little bit more than the half people are living in urban areas in Asia, but the rates of growing up are very high because of China, Japan, South Korea. And last place, very rural, is the continent of Africa. What is a megacity? This is really clear, no discussion about these in Latin so-called terminus technicus. Megacity is a city with 10 million or more inhabitants. And this is not from Wikipedia, this is from United Nations. In 2018, lived around 529 million people in cities and urban agglomerations. And in the megacities, it was the number of 33. So in 1970, worldwide, only 3 megacities, New York, Tokyo, and the rest is in discussion. Not really clear. In 1990, 10 megacities worldwide, and in 2018, 33, and the forecast of United Nations for 2030, 43 megacities. In the continent Europe, we have only 2 megacities, Paris in France and London in Great Britain. And in the European Union, because of the Brexit, leaving Great Britain from European Union, we have only Paris as megacity. So in the continent Europe, 2 megacities, in the European Union, only 1. This is a question. Is the next step from megacity to gigacity? Take a look at the People's Republic of China at the first row. There is the idea of the central government to combine the capital Beijing with the province Tianjin and with the province Hebei. In Austria, it's so. Our capital, Vienna, is a city. It's the capital of our state, Austria, and it's also a province. Take a look to Germany. Hamburg and Bremen, they are big cities, important cities for Germany, but they are also provinces. Yeah, so they have a double function. The same is in China. Beijing is the capital, but is also a province. Beijing is in the middle of the province Hebei, like Vienna. Vienna is in the middle of the province Lower Austria, but it's separated as a province for itself. And if the central government in China will realize the plan to combine the city of Beijing and 2 provinces, nämlich normally called Tianjin and Hebei, then there will be established a gigacity called Jing-Jin-Ji. Ji is the historical short form of Hebei. Planned a gigantic merge of the cities Beijing, Tianjin, about 130 million people, so it's nearly unbelievable. You can read the square kilometers. It would be a giga or metropolitan region in an unbelievable form. And this is not an idea, or it's not from AI, from me. It's an official picture. Of course, it's construction. It's not real. But this could be the idea of Jing-Jin-Ji, the gigacity. And you can see the GDP of Beijing, Tianjin, and Hebei, 10.4 trillion yuan, RMB, the currency of China. So what should we say to this phenomenon, these gigacity ideas? This is another topic. Austria is very small. It's a micro system comparing with China. The municipal structure in Austria and international. So take a look. We have so many cities and towns in Austria. It was not easy to find all the numbers. This was a researching project of Urban Forum to compare international countries and their municipal structure. And these are the results for the year 2022. And I compare Austria with other states or a province in Germany with about the same numbers of inhabitants. So Bulgaria, about 7 million inhabitants, Denmark, about 6, Sweden, more than 10, the province, the federal state Bavaria of Germany, more than 13, and Austria, 9.1 million inhabitants, people living here. And take a look to the numbers of the municipalities. Then Denmark, less than 100. Less than 100 in about 6 million inhabitants. And Austria, more than 2,000 cities and towns. So very, very many communities. And about nearly 2,100. So this is the picture of the very separated structure of Austria. I think these facts can be interesting for you. Take a look at the structure of Austria, the urban and rural country. Approximately 60% of the country is alpine terrain, with permanent settlements covering only 38% of the total area. So this is very interesting. We have so many cities and towns, but only 38% of the whole area of Austria can be used for permanent settlement. 17.6% of all municipalities in Austria are located in such a way that it is not possible for residents to reach the nearest urban center in 30 minutes. So this is a big problem. We have not enough public transport, so big problems. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people are going and settling in urban areas. Institute said we have to thinking in terms of regions. The Institute for Urban Planning. Urban regions are the drivers of economic, social, and cultural development. They are closely interlinked functional areas and provide services that benefit not only themselves, but also neighboring regions and Austria as a whole. So thinking in regions is one of the founding topics of my Institute Urban Forum. Austria's major cities have grown steadily in recent years. The OECD notes that the following in this regard: between 2010 and 2021, all cities in Austria experienced a rise in population. I think this is very interesting. But we had times, dear guests, where it was mentioned and it was a saying, and there are some books existing with these topics and these titles, The Dying City. And Vienna continuously lost inhabitants from 1974 to 1988. Now, in this moment, it's not to believe that Vienna shrank all these years from 1974 to 1988. The lowest population was in 1988 with 1.4 million inhabitants. And in 2024, it was more than 2 million inhabitants. A lot of people in Europe do not know that Vienna is the second biggest German-speaking city in the German-speaking countries. Vienna is bigger than Munich, bigger than Cologne, and also bigger than Hamburg. Only Berlin in the German-speaking countries is bigger than Vienna. So in the German-speaking countries, Vienna is number 2. So take a look. Germany has more than 82 million inhabitants, and Austria only 9.1 or 9.2 million inhabitants. But Berlin has 3.3 or 3.5 million inhabitants. In the huge Germany, and Vienna has more than 2 million inhabitants in the so small Austria. Yeah, so it's not normal, and the reason is we were a big empire, the Danube monarchy, with part of Czech Republic, with parts or the whole Hungary now, with parts of Italy. So Trieste, the harbor city and very famous for holidays, for vacancies. Trieste was part of the Austrian Empire. Yeah, also the capital of Slovakia, Bratislava. The former name was Pressburg, a former German name. And Sarajevo, Bosnia, was part of this huge Reich, so-called Reich in German language, empire. And this is the reason why Vienna is so huge. And it doesn't fit to our small country. And this is the content of a lot of jokes in Austria. The summary, dear guests, and this is a very important topic for Urban Forum, cities as economic drivers. 85% of domestic economic output and 71% of jobs in Austria's metropolitan areas. So in the urban areas, we have 85% of domestic economic output and 71% of all jobs are there. 70% of Austrian citizens, or 5.5 million people, live in cities, but not only in the cities, also in the surrounding areas, so the urban areas. According to the official facts of United Nations Habitat, the degree of urbanization in Austria was in 2020 58.7%, and the forecast to 2025 last year, it's a forecast because we don't have the final numbers, is or was 60%, a little bit more. The United Nations have the so-called UN Population Division, and they do not every year, but in some years, publish the World Urbanization Prospects, and the last were in 2018. And in these prospects, it was calculated that the ratio of urban to rural areas in Austria will be 70 to 30% in 2050, so in less than 25 years. And according to the calculations of the United Nations Population Fund, or the division, 5 billion people will be living in cities by 2030. And we all know 2030 is very close and very near. And by 2050, this figure will rise up to 6.25 billion. I think it's nearly unbelievable. And the last sentence is very, very interesting for me, and I say this sentence in all my speeches and in all panels where I'm invited. In 1992, so about 35 years ago, the United Nations stated in an official paper, "The future is urban." And dear guests, now it's very easy for everybody of us to say the future is urban, of course, for sure. But it wasn't in 1992. So this forecast was in 1992 not a foregone conclusion. It was a very interesting forecast at this time. You can read this opinion of the German Future Institute. And I think the most important sentence is, cities are the states of tomorrow. And maybe they are more powerful than states, making the most powerful players in a globalized world. Cities are more than just places. Urbanization involves more than just the transformation of living spaces. So new forms of networking, mobility, urbanity, maybe a new way of life and thinking. Kofi Annan, the late Secretary General of the United Nations, said at a conference in 2000, so 8 years later than the forecast from 1992. He said in an official speech, the future of humanity lies in cities. Now, it's foregone, but not 26 years ago. And unfortunately, this newspaper, the Viennese newspaper, the Wiener Zeitung, doesn't exist anymore. It was the oldest existing newspaper in the world. But now, unfortunately, it's deleted, I would like to say. And we all could read in the Wiener Zeitung 9 years ago, it may come as a surprise, but most of Austria's inhabitants live in cities because very, very many people in Austria do not believe that Austria is more urban than rural. This was my book. In the time of the COVID pandemic, I had a lot of time because so less conferences and so many lockdowns. And in this time, it was possible for me to do this research and to write this book. It's a question, is Austria a land, a country of cities? And I tried to do this open-minded, and you saw the results in this presentation. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for joining this lunch session. I hope it was interesting for you. And Urban Forum is existing for more than 10 years, and we try to be a strong voice for cities. Thank you, Bernd. Thank you, dear guests.